My session is about hacking and hacking mitigation with SQL Server. I love doing this session because as a hobby kind of thing, I like to tinker around a lot. And usually after the session, people are like, okay, we need to change things a little bit around. So first of all, thanks to the sponsors. Without these people, these events would not be possible. So visit their booths and talk to them. They will really appreciate it. So for the next 60 minutes or so, we're going to talk about why is this important. Probably not. We're going to, how do they gain access? How do they think? And of course, there's going to be demos. I'm going to apologize beforehand. I'm not going to do live demos. There's a couple of reasons for that. One, once I do my demos, it breaks my entire system. So I can't really redo it. And I thought it was smart, so I built everything in Bicep. And then Microsoft sent me an email. Don't do this shit on our own in Azure. So please don't, because we're going to cancel your account next time. So that's why I recorded everything, and I'm good to go. Some rules before we start. I want you to always ask questions, just interrupt me, and I will figure out where we are. Right? This is a two-way conversation. Maybe you have some insights that I can learn from, and the other way around. And this is the most important slide for me. This is a disclaimer. Just read this for a minute. Too long didn't read. I'm not responsible for any knowledge you learn from here and do some nefarious things with it. It's all you, right? So don't do dumb things. So who am I? I'm Sander. I work for Data Masterminds. I'm a Microsoft MVP as well. I've been in the IT industry for, oh, that's long, more than 20 years. I've worked in a variety of industries from agriculture to healthcare. And I usually do a lot of stuff with PowerShell automation, but security is also one of my niche things I like to do. So let's get into why is this so important. We're all friends here. Who has had a event where they got hacked or got phished or anything like that? You can raise your hand. We're all friends here. I've had it a couple times at different employers. On a Monday morning, 5 a.m., I got an email, everything is down. The entire network was encrypted. Backups, servers, everything. The only reason that the company didn't go bankrupt was because I made a backup of the database the Friday before to my own laptop. That's the only reason they didn't go bankrupt. So that's why this is so important. So how do they gain access? Phishing. We actually at Data Masterminds are trained all the time, get phishing emails like those bogus emails that look very much alike. They train us all the time. Very easy to click on a link and they're in. USB key malware. Don't put in a USB key that you find anywhere, especially not the ones I carry around. I wouldn't do that. I've had a incident at an airport where somebody just walked away, said, just watch my laptop, didn't even lock it. Bad things happen. So scanning networks for vulnerabilities, it's very easy to run a couple applications and find all the vulnerabilities that are, if you haven't updated your system, it's very easy. Guessing or social engineering passwords. Who has a Ring phone? Ring doorbell? So somebody just, if you use the Ring the doorbell, people always answer, no, I'm not at home. And immediately I know you're not at home, so I can get in, right? Wi-Fi compromises. It's very easy for me to create a rogue access point for less than 50 euros and just do a man-in-the-middle attack. I did that at my own home. People still connected to the free fast Wi-Fi. Got all the passwords for all the bank accounts. Just passed by. Most of the time, when you work with third parties, your network could be secure, but the third party isn't. They'll gain access through that. Web-based databases that are still vulnerable for web-based attacks, like SQL injection, we're going to see that later on, how easy that is. And insiders. Insiders is one of the biggest threats that's underestimated because all the people can access everything. So how do they think? Well, most of the time, it's 51% thrill. How can I get in? 29% is mostly what I do. Moral compass, I want to get in and see if I can help them out. 19% is money. That's where they just use ransomware and attack you. And only 1% is notoriety. Nobody's that dumb to say, I did this. So, right? So, what does it mean? You either choose to be one or you are one. What I mean by that is you either want to know about it and you start training yourself, or you already think that way. You experiment with a lot of systems. With the limitations of it, see if I can get that code injection to work. And they have a compulsion to experiment with systems. It's their bread and butter. It's what they think about all the time. So they understand a fundamental piece of technology, that is code. Without code, you can be if you can't really read code, you're not a hacker, because you have to write your scripts, you have to do anything like that. They want to command and control all the systems, and they learn very fast. So they constantly adapt. Once you're in a system, you have to adapt all the time, right? Any questions so far? Because I'm going to go into demos, which is the fun part of this. No questions. Cool. So the first demo is going to be SQL injection. That's still a large majority of the websites that I find on the internet are still vulnerable. It's a technique over 20 years old. It's still possible, and everybody knows the Bobby table, right? The Bobby tables thing. There are two different types of SQL injection. There's standard SQL injection and there's blind SQL injection. With standard SQL injection, you try to confuse the app to give you some information that it's not supposed to. With blind SQL injection, you have two different types. You've got Boolean based and you've got time based. And with Boolean based, it's like a yes or no answer that we handle, or with the time based, we do that based on how fast the system reacts. So let me go in here, get my mouse, and start the first one in here. Here we go. Is this big enough, by the way, for everybody? Can you watch what's on the screen in the back? Okay, cool. Go in, play. So this is an application called DVWA, definitely vulnerable web application, which I use for demos. And what you can put in, it's a user ID field, and I can put in a value, and it gives me something back, right? Normal things that we can do. There's some kind of code way of putting that all together, but if it's vulnerable to anything, I can put in something else. So one of the things you can test with is if you put a single quote in a text field and just hit submit. If you get an error, it's vulnerable. So in this case, I'm ending the query and saying or 1 is 1, which is always true. and it gives me all kinds of results. So the next thing I can do is extend on that and maybe select some data, because I can execute any kind of query after this. So I'm doing a union, select, and I'm going to get the user. Let's see what user is actually being executed. This is a function in MySQL, but this could be any database system. So that's the user down there. Already know which user is going to be connected. Cool. Let's see if we can get more information. This is already very wrong if I can get this far. So which database are we using? Because that's information we can use later on. DVWA, okay. Easy. It's the same application name, but could be any database. You see how easy it is? This is just manual. This takes a lot of time, but the next demo is going to be really fast because I'm doing this automated. So let's get the table name from one of the internal from the system tables and submit again. Cool. I've got all the tables, but that's not what I want. Maybe there's something with user or something like that. Let's do that. And I'm really lazy typing, so I just reuse the. That's why I automate all my work. And I think I keep clicking the wrong one. Yeah. I even make typos in my recording, but I just. So let's get the table name where it's something like user. It's probably easier. Yes. Okay, cool. Let's go down. We've got two tables, user and users. Well, it's going to be obvious which one we're going to use. So the next part is going to be what's in the user table. And I know this is boring. You can do this all manually. One, union, and now we're going to get and select stuff from the users table. We're going to do a concat. So what I want is the table name and the columns. So I'm going to put in a special character that's like a new line character within Linux, but you can do any like this with another system. And I want that from the information.tables schema.columns. That way I know which columns are in there and I can select them. Our table name is users. And then the query. Cool. So there's a couple of interesting fields in there. We've got the login name, the first name, the password, username. Okay. Let's see what's in there. So we're going to go up. And now we're going to select all that data from that table. Again, doing union. Look under concat and then get the columns they want. First name, new line, last name, and then username and password. Okay, from users and execute. So who's familiar with hashes? Okay, what kind of hash is that? No. I can see from the length of it, this is an MD5 hash. If there's any database in your environment with an MD5 hash, and it's internal development, hit your developers, because I can decrypt an MD5 hash within a second. It's already out there. It's too easy to do. So it should be at least SHA 256, but 512 or even above. Salt is, yeah. So if you salt it, it's actually better, but the salt is probably saved somewhere in the database. So I'll figure out what the salt is and then figure out what's going to happen. So, any questions so far? No? Quiet. So, let's go to the next one, which makes this all automated. I hate this. Why is this now? Wait. Yeah. Yeah. So I figured out that that column was probably going to be vulnerable, and then you do the nice thing is I don't have to do this manually. I can do this automated. So I'm going to see if I can get this to work. Yes, fine. So let's go to the next one. So we've got the same one, but this time we're going to do a blind SQL injection. And this is a bit different, but still doable. So we're going to use Burp Suite. And Burp Suite enables me to call websites with certain session IDs and make it easier to call them. I'm opening a browser to the URL. And what I need is that PHP session ID or an ASP session ID or anything like that. Doesn't matter which website I do. I'm going to use that later on to go and use SQL Map. SQL Map is an application that's just freely available. I'm using a Linux distribution that has all that stuff already in it. So we're going to use SQL Map and the URL. Of course, I'm lazy. I've already done this a couple times, right? So we're going to remove a little part of it, and we're going to execute that code. So we're going to add some items. I already need the session ID. So I'm going to copy that one. And it's going to act like I am already logged in. I already have the session ID, so I can act like another session and just hijack that. So I'm going to put in that session ID. Yes, paste the clipboard. And we're going to put in some data. So the data that we need is the ID field and what kind of submits I'm going to do with a form. So the ID is going to be one that doesn't really matter. And this application also needs the form. Submit is submit. Some more information. We're gonna attack the ID field, and I want all the DBs. It's already in there. I know all the databases that are on this server. And it uses different ways. So you can see that it uses a time-based this time, an error-based. All does it automatically for me. Don't have to do anything. So let's do the same thing, make it easier for us, and we can probably do the same thing, but then use that database and get all the tables. You see that this is a way easier way of viewing all the data. This is already nicely formatted. So the database is going to be dvwa, and now I want the tables. And let's do it in batch mode, otherwise all the alarm bells are going to ring. Down there are the tables. We can do the same thing. Let's go in and get the data. And I told you you're going to see how fast it actually already decrypts all the passwords for me. There it is. There's a password with password in it and all those kind of things. So if it's MD5 or any low-level hash, then it's going to be that fast. And this is about lateral movement. I show you a really simple way of getting in, but we want lateral movement. We want to get in somewhere and get some more information. But I can even dump it out, take it away, analyze it, or anything like that. Any questions so far? This was SQL injection. Now we're going to go to the more cool stuff. So, okay. Now we're going to go and go to Metasploit. Is this working? So we did this. So how can we prevent SQL injection? So one of the things we need to do is parameterize our queries. Ad hoc queries like we do, like concatenate everything, is not going to be a good thing. Let your database server handle all of that. Input validation. If it's a number, it should be a number. Don't make it text and do some kind of cast in the background. Make sure it's a number. Supply the parameters for the SQL statement. So if you have like a SP execute SQL, make sure that all the parameters are in there. Use store procedures, way easier. Don't use ad hoc queries. Use character escaping, so there's certain functions that will add slashes to your special characters, like the quote. So this will all be obsolete from that point on. Correct privileges, if it doesn't need all the privileges, yeah, always better. And there are web application firewalls that will actually look for these kind of algorithms and those kind of signatures that you can put in between to make this work. Those are just some ways that you can go about and prevent this. That's the mitigation part. And this is the entire session is to make the lateral movement for somebody who gets in a lot harder. Once I'm in one system, I'm going to spread out, and then you're not going to find out where I am, because I'm going to use all the different systems, right? So who knows Metasploit? What it is? No? So Metasploit is a penetration testing platform that is freely available. You can just download it and use it. And it is both a godsend and then your worst nightmare, because all the vulnerabilities are in there to test for it, but everybody can use it, so everybody can use it. Right? So let's see how we can use that for our next demo. Here we go. View. And let's go into this one. So I have two screens. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to run an nmap. Nmap is a tool to scan my network. I maybe want to look for port 1433. That's one of our SQL servers. SQL Server ports. So let's see if we can get something and find a server on that network where I'm in. One of the questions I once got was, but if I install this little application, then that entire demo is not going to work. I know. Told the guy, I know. But there are 1,000 different factors how I can get in. If I really want to get in, I'm just going to look you up on LinkedIn, go to your office, and see if I can just hijack you. So we found one server. So this was using Nmap. We can do the same thing with Metasploit. We start up at using the MSF console command, and it loads all the stuff we do. So there are, at that version, more than 2,000 different exploits in there. Almost 1,000 different payloads that I can use to do all kinds of things within the system. We're going to use MS SQL ping, which is one of the auxiliaries that we can use. And we're going to set the R hosts, which is a remote host, because I already know an IP address, and do run. That server contains a lot of information for me. I probably know which update it is or anything like that. I can do other stuff with that. Now I know the IP address, but I can do the same thing to do for the entire subnet. So let's clear the screen and do the same thing, but then instead of just an IP address, let's do the entire subnet and go through it and see if I can find. And yeah, I found one. Cool. And I'm going to stop this one, otherwise there's only one server in this network. Guess I built that. But this is how easy I can ping all your servers. Doesn't matter. It's not even looking at that port. It's just going to see if it can get in some way. So port obfuscation is not going to work. If you run it on a different port, I'm going to find it anyway. So now we're going to use a scanner. And this time I'm going to use MS SQL login. All your passwords are already online. I can go and get all those lists. And there already are lists available in this Linux distribution with all the known passwords out there. So I have a users.txt, which just doesn't contain that many users in my case. But I can just go in, get the password text, with all the passwords in there. And it's going to iterate through all of them. So if you're not monitoring for your failed logins on your SQL server, I'm going to get in at some point. Set it to verbose. I don't need all that information to come back. And set the amount of threads, because I don't want to be that noisy neighbor and people find out. And it got in. Yeah, this is a really easy password, but I could probably figure it out or make some random password generator and figure something out if it's not a secure password. There are different ways to get in as well. So now we're going to get something that is pretty scary. We're going to use the MS SQL payload. So I can send a payload using Interpreter, the reverse TCP auxiliary, which enables me to send a payload to that server and it will give me access to it. So I'm going to use port 443 just to obfuscate that I'm actually attacking this thing. Set the R hosts. I already know the username. I'm going to set the password. And run it. And what this is going to do in the end is I will have a session where I can just do a dir and I'm on that server. It is a TCP session using a payload through SQL Server. Almost done. And now I have a session. This is just like I have connected to your server. And if I do something like sysinfo, which is a typical Windows command, I can actually get in. Any questions so far? No? Let's do something else. Let's go into the server. Who has trustworthy databases? So there's an option within SQL Server that you can make a database trustworthy. Don't do that. Not in production. So I'm going to show you there's an unsafe trustworthy database. It's trustworthy within the SQL Server, which means that SQL Server trusts this database to do all kinds of different things. So there's a user down there called user1 who does not have any sysadmin privileges. Doesn't do anything, it's just a login. And it is a user within the unsafe trustworthy database. And it's owned by SA, which we usually do, right? So if you go down to the database, there's an option all the way down called trustworthy, which is true. You can't really set it in this screen. You need to really write the SQL command to actually allow that to happen. So we have enough information from here. Again, no sysadmin roles. Cool. Let's go back to Metasploit. How much time do I have? We're good on time. Did I just pause it? There we go. So this time we're going to use a different exploit. We're going to start typing. Yep. We're going to use the auxiliary MS SQL escalate privilege. Or escalate DB owner. Yeah. So we're going to set the R hosts. You can actually set multiple hosts, but we're going to just do one. We already know the username because we found that out later before. That's all about the lateral movement. I'm going to set the password because we already know that password. We already hacked that. And now that user is a sysadmin because it used the trustworthy option in the database, just like that. So if somebody isn't a sysadmin and is still a DB owner, or it's one of the owners, I can set that within a couple seconds. I once used this at a client because they couldn't get into the server anymore. And then it was a sysadmin, could fix it, a couple things. But now it's a sysadmin. I can do all kinds of different things from here on. I can use XP command shell. I can do a whole bunch of different things. Wait. Any questions so far? Still with me? Everybody's so quiet. It's just a different way of getting in. Maybe I want some more information about the system. I can do different things with the payloads. Maybe I want sys information. Maybe it's a domain controller as well. Cool. It's a domain controller. I get all that information. I gather as much as I can in a short amount of time. Normally, this is all done manually. I'm typing all of this. This is normally scripted and done within 30 seconds. And I'm out, because I want to have as low amount of, as the least amount of time I'm on the system. The longer I'm on the system, the higher the risk I'm going to get caught. Right? So the next one is going to be interesting. So we all use Kerberos, right? We authenticate with it, Active Directory, it's a main protocol, and it should be safe. There's just a golden ticket attack that we can use. So we can create Kerberos tickets to act like we are an admin. So there's a special ticket within Kerberos called the Kerberos ticket granting ticket, the KRB TGT, which we're going to use. And this is used by domain controllers to give you certain Kerberos tickets to actually log in. Okay? And it's usually just only owned by the Kerberos servers or the domain administrators. Okay? Let's go in and see what happens. So I found a domain controller on the system just by guessing or finding through scans or anything like that. But at first, I don't have access to go to the system drive, which is good, right? I shouldn't be able to get into the system drive as a normal user on a domain controller. Let's see what happens when we do anything with the Kerberos ticket granting ticket. So I'm going to do a privilege debug. One of the things you can do is monitor for these kind of things, like somebody wants to get admin access. This is the same kind of thing that you do, like right click, run as admin kind of thing. I'm going to do an LSA dump, which is a command within this to get the encrypt some more information about this ticket. I know the security ID for the KRB TGT and the hash. This is all information you can retrieve. Now I'm going to create a golden ticket. This is just a command within that we can use. This is by the way called mimikatz. Any kind of up-to-date software should be able to figure this one out, but this is just one way to get in. Cool. Let's get the security ID. So I'm creating a Kerberos ticket, literally creating one. It's a Kerberos ticket running ticket. I'm going to get the hash from there. I'm going to feed it in, and I'm going to give myself a couple groups. So ID 500 is administrator, and I'm going to give me the group for the administrators as well. I'm going to set the renew max to a limited amount of time, but normally, because if I do this default, it's going to be 6 months, which is really weird for a Kerberos ticket. It should be like a week at most. So I save that file, and now I can list all. I don't have any Kerberos tickets. Okay, nothing is loaded, which is good. Now we're going to use that ticket. I'm going to load it, and now I do have a Kerberos ticket. And now comes the scary part. I'm going to make a typo in my own demos. So I'm going to use some miscellaneous and then create a command screen. So let's look back at what we had in the previous screen. So I wasn't able to get access to that drive, right? To that file share. Now I do the same thing, and I'm on your domain controller. Just like that. From here on, I can just grab your Active Directory database, take it offline, and decrypt the entire thing in the cloud somewhere, and then come back later on. I know all your passwords. So how do you figure out what to do against this? Well, there's a couple things that we can do. So, first of all, you have to change the KRB TGT password. If you use Stig, it says, Microsoft says you have to do it regularly, which is really, doesn't make any sense. But Stig is one of the standards that you can use. It says do it every 180 days. You have to do it twice because the password memory is 2. So you have to change it twice, and once you do that, all the current tickets are invalid. So everybody has to re-authenticate, and you're good to go. So there should be only a minimum amount of people being able to get to that hash. You can actually set an option in AD to switch it off. I would not be able to do the LSA dump if I don't have like replication enabled to all the workstations that allows me to get that information. That's one of the minimize for the opportunities. And you have to monitor your IT environment. So you can monitor for Windows logon events with empty fields, because there's a lot of empty stuff that I didn't put in, and usually you want to be fast. If there's a lot of empty fields like last name or all that stuff in your Kerberos or in your logon, then there's probably something happening. There are other events that you can use for them that Mimikatz use or any of that. Okay, how's everybody doing? You're gonna go home and say, shit, need to do some work, right? I just saw a session. That's not funny. Some pointers to remember. Security is a mindset. I know it's a hassle. You don't want to develop and you want to get all the access you want, and you want to be able to install all your software as you want. But it's not the best thing. Hackers think differently, because if you are an admin on your local server, or they will find your hash at some point. If they get in, they get that hash, and you're done. People are the weakest link. Sorry, you are. Systems are not, people are. And think about your choices with security in mind. Okay? We're almost at the end, because there are barely any questions. We still have about 15 minutes. So, who knows TryHackMe? So, TryHackMe is a platform where you can actually spin up environments, and it's like a capture the flag kind of thing. You have to figure out how to get into the system, and you learn really fast what vulnerabilities are actually out there. It's free, and there's a paid version as well that's a little bit faster as well, but most of the stuff is just free. SIS is one of the organizations that sets standards, how to set what to do for security aspects, what to do with SQL Server, what to do with your domain. Stig is mostly used by governments or military. Similar to SIS, it's just way more thorough. And OWASP is a really good resource to know what is actually happening. There's the top 10 projects that can help give you a lot of information as well. Okay. Any questions? I ran through it pretty quickly, but nobody? What do you think? So the question is, what about cloud environments? And things are probably they already implemented some standards, right? So I can tell you that if you set up a system on your own and you don't know anything about security, it's probably going to be less secure than if you do it in the cloud. But if I put a server, if I put it on, if I spin up a SQL server in Azure and open RDP and watch how many logins are happening within 30 minutes, that system is going to be hacked within the hour, because there's constant scanning on for vulnerabilities on cloud IP addresses. They're all known. So it's not just a marketing thing. They do implement standards, especially when you do some specific things in Azure. So there are new options to encrypt on the CPU level as well, sometimes. But you have to implement some security standards as well. Does that answer your question? So it's really easy. There's sys and stig have a list what to do, what you can do, and what you need to execute. There's actually code in their documents. Execute this, that will give you that opportunity will not be possible to get into the system. They will help you with that. There's so the question is, so I need to have access to the network, right? Is that more difficult or not? The more hurdles you put in, the harder it's going to be for me to get in. So if you put in site-to-site VPNs and I have to use that VPN with your account, then it limits already a lot of stuff that I can do. But still, I can look you up on LinkedIn that you work at a certain company that probably works for other companies as well. And let's see if I can get in through there. If I really want to, I will get in. I will spoof a Wi-Fi SID here. I once did it at an event, see if I can get the same SID working. Everybody connected. It doesn't really, it's a device this big. I could just put it in a wall outlet somewhere. Nobody notices it. Does that answer your question? Yep. So how can you harden your SQL Server from a DBA perspective? Yeah, so one of the things that you should do is, well, like I said before, if you really want to harden it based on a standard, go to sys or stig and go through the list what you actually want to do to minimize the amount of vectors that we have to attack. So disable the SA count. If you don't need it, disable it, because it's easier to, everybody knows about that account. You can do, it's more like obfuscation, but you can change the port number. That's one of the items that Stick says. Change the port number to something else. Makes it a little harder, but I can still scan the entire network and find all your SQL servers. But it's another hurdle. The more that I do, the harder it becomes. The more time I have to spend on the system, the easier it's going to be to find me. So those are just a couple of examples. Minimum privilege. I'm rarely giving anybody sysadmin, ever. I will fight you for it. You need DB owner? Tell me why. Because that's already a higher privilege than you probably need. Do you need to create objects? No, you don't. We'll do that through DevOps and all automated releases, right? You don't need to create those objects in there. Anymore. Well, just go ahead. We have got all the time. Yeah, so the question is, can I, so if I do an, if I deploy an Azure SQL database and I want to connect to that Azure SQL database, you can create a network security rule or group, an NSG, that only allows that certain IP address, that public IP address, to go in. I can spoof your IP address. There are applications. I can spoof MAC addresses as well, which is really, but I need to know your specific public IP address to figure that one out. It's figure outable, but it's another hurdle, right? If you only allow a certain amount of IP addresses, which are random, because I work with people from Sweden which have different IP addresses than I do. And always use a VPN, by the way. If you connect to a public Wi-Fi without a VPN, you are actually giving everything away. Basically, VPNs are not expensive. And if you, we use NordVPN. You can get static IP addresses as well for certain logins, and then connect to it anyway. So if you have that security rule, you can just connect to a certain country, get a set IP address for your account, and then get in. Geo-blocking is also a way of doing that. If you have no connections from another country, if you are just in Poland and you have no connections from Germany or the Netherlands or wherever, then block that entire location. Makes it really hard to get in, because I need to know which locations are accepted. Some more questions? All right. Did you learn anything today? Still have 5 minutes. Yeah, everybody's hungry, right? No. Well, I'm gonna thank you for attending, and if there are any more questions, feel free to send me an email or contact me online about this, and hope you have a good day.